Frankie here. Today I'm joined by Alex Diaz, B-Boy El Nino, representing Floor Lords Squadron from Boston, Massachusetts, to talk about experiences and perspectives on Breakin. Alex, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Frankie.
Could you just briefly share what's new in your life, maybe breaking related, outside of breaking, for, let's say, this last summer so far?
I think the main thing, one of the biggest changes of my life started late last year. So October last year, actually, I opened up a dance studio. Pretty much we did like the opening event January this year. That's been like a real change. It's in a good way, just keeping me busy though. It's pretty cool for my crew, to have a spot to practice as well, but also a spot to like teach the youth and just vibe out. The space has really turned into a hub, which is what I wanted, a hub for like Boston dancers, period, not just breakers, but like hip hop dancers, crumpers, dance hall. My crew, Floor Lords, being kind of like the oldest crew out of Boston, I think, it was only right to provide a safe space for dancers in the city. And so I'm really proud of that. That's probably like the biggest change. On a more like personal life level, of course, I just had another son.
Congratulations.
Thank you. He just turned 1, early July.
Going back to the studio thing, I feel like any breaker that's been around long enough knows the struggle of just having a darn consistent practice spot.
Exactly. And for many years, we had to bounce around. So we'd have one spot for a while, maybe a year or two. Luckily, we were able to practice at MIT for many years. That was like one of the most consistent spots we had. But during the pandemic, all the schools closed down. Once we opened back up, the spot was kind of like not there anymore. That was kind of like one of the things I was working on during quarantine, trying to figure out once we open back up, like where are we gonna practice, because most of us were just practicing from home. Some of us weren't practicing at all if we didn't have space at home. So yeah, that's a struggle for a lot of dancers out there.
One other question about the boys. Are they going to be breaking, you think?
Yeah. So I have 2 boys. One of them is 8 and he's breaking already. But I'm also like, I'm letting him figure his way out. I'm not forcing it on him. He breaks, he knows like all of his basics. So he's got 6 steps, CCs, kickouts. Last class that he came to, he was kind of like learning his windmill a little bit. So, but I'm letting him like take his time. I'm trying not to like pressure him, because I think even like with my little brother, I have like a little brother who breaks too. I think it was a lot of pressure for him, and he kind of like, I think he just like quit. He was like, yeah, this is too much. I don't want my son to go through that same like kind of pressure to try to be something or be a famous b-boy or anything like that. I think that would be doing a disservice. Now, my typical approach is just bring him around it, bring him around the culture, let him pick up on it. I mean, he comes to Floor Lords anniversary every year. He loves it, but right now he's into basketball and Fortnite more than breaking. That's his thing. But if he comes around, he wants to really take it seriously later, then I'll teach him more and bring him around more.
So for dance beginnings, I'll just quickly recap what I know. Born in 1990, performing, and you were battling as early as 95 with Floor Lords, with your family essentially. Older brother, Flight, J-Quest, Lean Rock, Cousins, Lean C, Nas. We're familiar with how Floor Lords had already been breaking for some time, even before you started, like the 80s. We have also heard you talk about this transition where life just happens. Every breaker, again, that's been in this game long enough, always hears the story about other breakers dropping off. But you guys, as Floor Lords, stuck with it. The timeline from then on, I kind of want you to help me fill in. Where are we in terms of crews and the details from that point on? How you got down with Boogie Brats, how you got down with Squadron?
Heading into like the late 90s, into like the early 2000s, some of my crewmates and Floor Lords started to like fall off a little bit. Quit breaking, get regular jobs, go to school, get married, have kids, things of that nature. So at that point, I think like me and Lean Rock, we had this like kind of like aha moment where we were like, well, you know what? Like the crew's kind of dying out a little bit. I think it's time that like we're the next generation, and it's time that we sort of put the crew on our back. We went on, of course, like as a partnership, doing 2-on-2s together. Obviously, Lean Rock ended up becoming more of a DJ, going to the DJ side of things. But either way, we knew we wanted to like represent the Floor Lords name and represent the city of Boston, because we didn't have much names coming out of that besides like Guru from Gangstar, Edo G, musicians, rappers like that, other guys like Bebo, who was making a name for himself as well. So at that point, it was kind of like me and Lean Rock who were like young, and then like some of the older generation guys. I think at that point when Lean Rock started kind of going more towards the DJ side of things, I was kind of like just left solo. So I just started doing like a lot of one-on-ones, one-on-one battles, you know, winning here and there, started traveling. UK, France, and Japan were like some of the first places I ever went to overseas. During this time, Squadron was kind of killing it. I was watching them. I remember judging them at Flow Lord's anniversary, United Styles. They won, and I was like, man, these guys are amazing.
What year was this?
I want to say 07, just like at the beginning of like when Squadron first got together. They were like killing everything, pretty much winning everything at this time. That squad was Speedy, Nasty Ray, Kid David, Luigi, but it was a pretty strong squad. They came stacked. That was the year that we did United Styles for $50,000, which was like a big thing. I remember MZK came out for it, and I think that was the final battle. Went to a tiebreaker. Casper and Luigi were in the tiebreaker, and then Luigi like edged it out. That was a big deal. That was like, I mean, I already knew Squadron was killing it, but that was my first time seeing them in person, just together as a collective. Obviously, I seen some of those guys solo. And then Lean Rock became a part of Squadron, like as a DJ. He was basically like talking to Mex, talking to the guys, telling them, you should put El Nino down, you should put my cousin El Nino down. He's really dedicated, he's killing it. You know, I guess it took a little while, so I didn't get down with Squadron until 2010. I remember we were at IBE, Mex officially put me down. He gave me the official Squadron Biggest and Baddest jacket. And that was a really dope moment for me because I felt like I had like a crew again to battle with. Since my original crew, Flow Lords, was just me and like the older generation, you know, we didn't have younger people for me to like really battle with, you know. Boogie Brats was before that. Boogie Brats was like pretty much after, I mean, I know you guys know 2002, Lords of the Floor, me and K-Mel, we entered as Floor Brats. And that was pretty much the moment that I got down with Boogie Brats. Before that, me and K-Mel was doing a lot of performances with us, with Floor Lord. We always needed extra people. You know, Technique has done shows with us, Migas, and you know, we did theater shows, Incredible Josh too.
They were from Canada, right?
Boogie Brats was from Canada, yeah, originally Montreal. But K-Mel is from the Bronx, New York. K-Mel started off as like more of a street show hitter, dancer. He had flips, he had hollows. But when he started coming to Boston, my uncle Nino, Lean Ski, he started to teach him a little bit more foundation. Like, yo, you got dope flips, you got dope hollow backs, but you need to mix it in with your footwork, flavor, and stuff like that. So Lino became kind of a mentor to K-Mel. K-Mel started doing a lot of shows with us, and he would just come back and forth from New York to Boston, New York to Boston, back and forth. So we were already really, really cool. After like Lords of the Floor was just like more like, oh, let's make it official type of thing. You know, you're officially Boogie Brats. So
for Squadron, you guys are all in different geographies. Was that ever a challenge in terms of trying to stay in touch?
I think originally most of the guys were in Florida with Mex. Mex, I mean, the great thing about Mex was that, you know, he had a good way of bringing everybody together. So whenever we had a battle or something we wanted to do, everybody would take their time to fly into Orlando, train before it, and like vibe and get the chemistry right before the battle. I mean, obviously, most of the guys already had a relationship with each other when I came in. But again, like I knew all these guys already. I already knew like Luigi, getting closer to Keebs and Ray and guys like that. It was just pretty easy, you know, it was just easy. Like, I just fit in with everybody. It was all, the respect level was there from all ends because everybody was dope and everybody was just representing not only like Biggest and Baddest and Mex and his vision, but also just like the vision of like keeping what we feel breaking should look like alive, which means like being funky with it, listening to the music, representing all elements, being original. You know, it's just a few things that we stood for, you know, we believed in. It honestly is not that hard. And like even now, all the Squadron guys are like pretty much living in LA now. I'm the only one that lives in Boston. I'm like the oddball. But we all make an effort, you know. We're all like really like brothers. Like I know some people might, I don't think this is like a thing anymore, but people look at Squadron as like a super crew. But honestly, we're all like brothers. We work on projects together and we get it done. Like we do Styles No Joking, which is a park jam. Again, we do the park jam because we want it to be like very hip hop oriented. So that's what we stand for. We're working on some more stuff too.
So basically, to start, we're gonna go back to 2007, B-Boy Olympics 5.
Yeah, this is throwback right here. So I must have been about 16 or 17 years old here. That's a classic signature. So I think, speaking on this round, I just see hunger. When I look at this era of my dance, I always look at it, I'm like, uncontrolled, controlled movement, if you will. Like, I feel like I was just like a Tasmanian devil, like going crazy, no structure, freestyling.
That young energy.
Yeah, it's like that young energy, yeah, which a lot of people like love about me. They love this era. As I grew, I wanted to, you look at your old stuff and you're like, you don't like it. I wanted to structure it more instead of just like freestyling, But I think at the end of the day, like a lot of my OGs, they're like, well, that's part of it. That's you. Like you just go out there and be El Nino, But I think you want to grow, you want to evolve as a dancer over time. So since then I've tried to structure my rounds a little bit better and also make my rounds longer. My rounds were kind of short back then.
That was more of a generational trend too, I think. People
Exactly. Yeah. Because I also grew up cypher battling a lot. Like even a lot of the first like competitions that I went to, my crew would go and we would just battle people in the cyphers. We didn't care about the competitions. So in a cypher battle format, you never really know how many rounds you're gonna go. You go freaking 20 rounds. So you gotta like conserve your energy.
So you've previously talked about gratitude for how supportive your family has been through basically the beginning of your dance career. Like it's just something you grew up with. I want to ask, this Alex in 2007, did this Alex know for sure dance was going to be his career? Or what that would even look like? Did you have any foresight for that?
At this particular time, yeah. But then like shortly after this, I graduated high school and I had that moment of like not really knowing if this is feasible, if it's doable. As you start getting older, I remember being like 18, 19, thinking to myself, I gotta move out of my parents' house soon. How am I gonna pay bills? How I'm gonna pay rent? Boston is expensive to live. So I didn't know how that was. I did an internship straight out of high school and I had a job. I had a pretty good paying job for being, 18 years old, straight out of high school. I was working for Xfinity Comcast. So I did that for a little while, but I started looking at my managers and some of the higher ups at the company that have been there for like 20 years plus. They just all seemed miserable to me. I just had another like aha moment that I was like, man, this is gonna be me in 20 years if I stick with this job.
What were you doing? Were you like a field technician?
I was a field technician. So I'd go to people's house and I was barely even that. I did it for like a year until like I snapped out of it. I was like, what am I doing? Because I was trying to do both. I was still like traveling and breaking and then still like doing this job. And I was like, I'm still young, still living with my parents. Let me see if this is possible. So I just quit the job and decided to pursue my dreams. I mean, it was the right thing, the right thing to do.
And what did that look like from then on?
I think I just got laser focused. Obviously, without a job, you have more time to train. And then I just started like traveling like crazy, doing 1 month Euro tours, 1 month Asia tours, teaching workshops and stuff. I think I was very blessed and extremely lucky to be that young and be accepted as a judge, to be accepted as somebody who can teach workshops and stuff like that at that age. I took advantage of that and very grateful of like my uncles and my teachers, because I know without them, people wouldn't like trust my expertise in teaching and stuff like that, or judging. Without like Float, Leansky, Nas, there would be no me, so.
Yeah, it wouldn't just be, it's not just a question of your dedication or drive or, how much you can output. It has to do a little bit about your particular situation with it.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And I think a little part of me also felt like, almost like I have to try it. because I was in a unique position, you know, and not everybody has that blessing. That was another reason why I was like, well, you know what, I can quit this job and do it for a while, and then maybe, you know, later down the line, if it doesn't work out, could always get a job and, you know, change career paths. But breaking as a career path itself, not everybody gets to say that they can do that.
We're gonna jump a little bit in time here. 2011. 2011 was a busy year for you.
Yeah, it was probably my best year, I think.
The A team of U.S. breakers in this Seven to Smoke. Ray takes what looks like session, and then you come out for your round.
Word. So it's a little awkward when you got to battle crewmates, but you know, I wasn't playing. I was trying to win. Trying to get dubs under my belt. I got to bring that back. As you can see from that other clip, 2007 to now 2011, you can sort of see refined a little bit better, a little bit cleaner. I think my style over time and my moves have like remained the same, but I tried to make the sets better and longer, a little bit more refined. Even now, if you look at my stuff, my footwork's a lot better now. When I teach workshops, a lot of people like to ask, like, how do you transition in between footwork to power and back to footwork? I think for me, it's just all about flow. I'm the type of b-boy I like consistent flow, and I'm like obsessed with it. And I don't know, like now I'm actually trying to like switch it up a little bit. Like I'm trying to break up the flow a little bit, but it's like it's just something that I always like, even in other b-boys. The drums are moving me. The drums are consistent. My flow must be consistent with that. For example, like when I see certain b-boys, if they stop the flow and they're kind of sitting down and they're like threading or whatever, it's like not my cup of tea. I respect it, but I also feel like, oh, well, there's music in the background. So if you're sitting down and you're prepping to do this one move, you've already missed like a whole 8 count of drums. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about breaking is like, that's just my opinion. Everybody can have their approach and how they want to approach the dance and how they want to approach the music. For me, I think just give me a good beat. I need a good DJ. Execute my moves, freestyle a little bit in between it. The most important thing to me is to make sure that everything is connecting and making sense. And I think this round, very like precise. I mean, I think I'm like freestyling a little bit in there, but that's like how my moves are. I've got certain signature moves and then I freestyle in between it. But I have like these little transitions that I use to get to the next spot to get to the next move. So I think that's what we're seeing here in this set.
Going back to what you were saying about someone, if they just end up on their bum and they're threading, or maybe if the music warrants that, maybe you can cut out the flow here and there.
Yeah, I think if it's like, for example, if it's a part of the beat where the drums cut out and then there's just music, then I like that. Because you're kind of like, at some point, the drums are going to come back in. So maybe you can go, doom, bap, and catch a freeze. Or like if the music is just like some guitar riff, and then you're like threading on that guitar riff with no drums in the back, then that's dope. Like for me, and this is one of the reasons why around this time I started getting a little bit closer to Thesis, because I felt like, at least for my style and my approach to the dance and the way I look at things, I feel like Thesis was the best at not stopping the flow, threading and kind of having that unique style that he has, but never getting rid of the flow.
2011, you have this bracket for the Seven to Smoke. I'm wondering, how well did you know everyone at this time? Were you familiar with the Havocoro guys? Were you familiar with Vic? I know you guys met a few times this year. What was the dynamic like?
Yeah, so this was like kind of my first time like meeting him, kind of seeing him like, oh, okay, this is the next guy from Houston who's gonna be killing it. I didn't know Zeshin too well here, so it was kind of like getting to meet the Houston scene here. Obviously, I knew Ray. Me and Thesis were just starting to like get cooler. As far as me and Vic, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, yo, after, even at BC1 Chicago, even though I beat him, even then I was like, all right, this is the next guy. Like I kind of already knew him, like this guy is gonna be killing it because of his talent level was so high and was so young. So it's like, nowadays, that's like, we see the kids killing it all over the place. But back then, because I like barely beat him in 2011. So I was like, okay, if I barely beat this kid, he's gonna be a problem. You know what I mean? At this point in time, this was like literally a couple years after I quit my job, and I was like hell bent on trying to win everything. This was like a good year for me. Probably my most successful year, because I won a bunch of stuff this year, 2011.
You're describing just this hungriness you had 2011, so maybe this wasn't an issue at the time and you're a little bit younger, but my question here is, just from my experience this last year, I've been going to battles maybe 1 to 3 battles a month. Just set aside for a second, you know, staying healthy, having the personal finance to be able to buy your flights, for gas, the hotel. What I want to bring attention to is what I describe at this point is like a mental fatigue. You're running the same moves. Maybe you notice the same weaknesses in your rounds. Since you're traveling so much, you really don't have a chance to develop your skill set. Is any of this resonating with you, at maybe not in 2011, but at any point in your career?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, after a successful year like this, you're gonna get approached to travel even more, travel overseas. So yeah, that does take a toll. Not only like your mental and physical, but also like you said, not being able to train as much. So I still went on like a run after this. Like I won a few more jams. I won some things in 2013, Outbreak in 2015. It's still like a mental, physical fatigue. I think you have to like try to find that time when you are home to train. 2014 is also a year where a lot changed for me, because that's when I had my first son, my son Jordan. Once that happened, I think things changed a lot for me in terms of like importance in my life. After that, I was like, nothing's more important than my son. So I slowed down for a bit for that year. I didn't want to miss any moment of my son's first year, with him walking, talking, little moments like that. I was there for all that. It was very special. That was like family, gotta like kind of chill out a little bit, because I was traveling like every other weekend. Sometimes getting home, unpacking the suitcase, putting some new clothes in it, and leaving the next day. Barely seeing my girlfriend, who's now my wife, barely seeing her, missing birthdays, missing her birthday because BC1 World Final is always around her birthday. After having my son, it was like, all right, let me just chill out a little bit. Did a lot between those years, in that 5 years, from 2011, even before that, but let's say like 2011 to like 2016, flooded. And that's in between like a lot of other stuff too, like just shows, crew shows, performances. It's a little bit of everything. At the same time, like I mentioned, I never lost sight of the blessing that it is to be doing what you love to do. That part has never left me. It still feels like that. It's still, even being here in Michigan, I remember my first time going to Detroit, Michigan for Mighty 4, now to 2022, this being like my 3rd or 4th time in Michigan. It's pretty cool to see that like people are still inspired, and like I got love in certain places, certain pockets of the world. I look at like my analytics and stuff sometimes, like on Instagram and stuff, and you can see where your impact is. So I have like a huge impact in like Russia. You know, a lot of people in Russia got love from me. Russia, Ukraine, India. And then obviously certain places that I've been to, like Michigan, Florida, certain places that fly me out multiple times. It's like, oh, dope, like I kind of have an impact on the scene here. Even my workshop yesterday, it was mostly kids. A lot of them were, you know, just little things like, can we get a picture with you? And I'm like, man, this is the next generation that I'm still inspiring. And I'm sure I'm gonna see these kids killing it in the next couple years. I'll be there and remember like, man, I remember I taught this kid when he was like 9. You know what I mean? So
he asked me to sign his jersey.
Yeah.
Next to the Wizard.
Now he's killing it. Right, exactly.
This question I wanted to ask you basically for 11 years since I've watched your footage. We're going to show one particular sequence. Exhibition, shorty breaks, sweet loo, toys. I've heard Ark from 808 call this a rum or a rummy. I can find footage of you doing this rum air flare as early as 2007. Correct me if you were doing it earlier than that.
A little bit earlier than that. Okay. I think 06, maybe 05, 06, I started playing around with the idea.
What can you tell us as far as the history of this move, and what was the experience for you?
I'm gonna level with you. I honestly don't know the history of the move. To me, air flare was like early 2000s in the East Coast. Like obviously certain people had air flares like crazy, like Moy and Boy from Havoc Coral, Ruin, Ivan. One of the first guys teaching me air flare was like Incredible Josh and my brother Flight. But on the East Coast, we were mostly footwork and style oriented, but I always wanted to mix both. I focused more on power because I knew I had access to style and footwork. I knew I could get it later. And also a lot of people weren't doing power moves on the East Coast. So air flare was like that move in the early 2000s that everybody was trying to get. On the East Coast, there's only two people that I remember like who could do it, and that was Chino from Breaks Crew, Incredible Josh from Incredible Breakers. Everybody else was just trying to get it. Flex from my crew, one of the OGs from my crew had it, and then my brother Flight had it. So I wanted it. I'm like, damn, this is like kind of like a limited move that everybody's trying to get, nobody can get, everybody's struggling with. Once I got it and I was able to like, okay, I can do like 2 or 3 or 4. I can do flare to air flare, whatever. So there's like a fun fact about myself. I don't have a good stab on my right. I actually stab on my left. I used to do this, right? And I would jump, but I would fall to like a swipe, kind of like a sweep under. That's where the idea kind of came from. And I was just like, okay, well, I know I can like jump and then go to swipe, but can I throw it really high to air flare? That would be really cool if I could do that. So I started playing around with the idea, and then I was able to do it. Initially, I was doing it like kind of low. So I had to build up the strength a little bit, build up the strength off the right. Once I got it and I learned how to like throw it really high, I was like, okay, yeah, this is dope. I'm adding this to my arsenal. And then I just started doing it. It became one of those moves for me. And then after this, if you notice, I have a lot of other moves. So because I stab on my left, you could look at it like a weakness, because most people could stab on their right. But I just looked at it like an opportunity to do things a little bit differently than most. So that's why you see like I have a move where I do flare, and then I drop on my left with one hand and I go to inside halo. And then I have another move where you see I'll do flare to windmill, tap, tap, and then I lift up and kind of like repeat that move, tap, tap, lift up. So I kind of use my left a lot to push up and to do a lot of like inside 90s, inside halos, which is like usually difficult for most people.
Are you right-handed?
I am right-handed, yeah. So it's weird. It's weird, but
So you naturally wanted to learn power clockwise for being a right-handed person, but it just so happens left is stronger, more comfortable.
Right. It's weird. It's really weird. You got to work with what you got. We were speaking earlier, as a kid, for some reason, power and the timing of power came easier to me. I went with that. So my style, I don't really consider myself a power head. I like to just consider myself an all-around b-boy with a style that is power-based. And I'm actually like now working on strengthening my right more. All those years that I kind of like focused on my left, now I'm focusing on my right because this is a weakness. But in general, like stabbing on the left, I looked at it more as an opportunity to be different, because my generation is all about being different. When I practice, I like to practice like stamina, practice your freestyle, just like kind of throwing down and getting busy. Also, every practice, I always try to like create. You don't create something every practice, but every now and then you get a gem. The move now, like kind of the move that I've been doing now, backwards headspin, the headspin in the back of that's old. There's footage of me on YouTube in 2000 doing that. But I used to do it with my legs up, and then I sort of upgraded it. So now I like pike a little bit, close my legs, and it looks better that way. And I can also spin longer. I go in and out of moves. Like sometimes I throw moves away for a couple years and then I bring them back. You just showed me a clip too, because I don't watch a lot of my old footage, which I should. Oddly enough, I don't watch a lot of breaking anyway. I watch a lot of like the homies battles, and I watch some of the bigger battles. But I probably should be watching a lot of my old stuff because there's so many gems there. This is like a treat.
Moving on to 2014, freestyle session one-on-one with Gravity. We're gonna show your first round.
Yeah, you can see here I'm like throwing a little bit more footwork. Like I said, I was noticing like my rounds are kind of short. In this particular battle, you can see my wrist is wrapped up. It's crazy how things work. Originally, I was just coming to do the 3-on-3 because I was injured. My wrist was messed up from silverback. Silverback was just before this. If any of you guys been to silverback, you know it's like a padded floor. My wife was like, well, the 1-on-1 is today, the 3-on-3 is tomorrow. You should just enter. And I was like, I don't really know. Like, I'm not feeling 100%. My wrist is kind of jacked up. And she was like, well, you know, the UDEF battles, like if you make top 16, you make money. You make top 32, you make money. It's like, you should just do it. You know what? You're right. Whatever. I'll just do it for fun. And then I end up winning. Pretty crazy. But I think partly one of the reasons I ended up winning this was just because I had no expectation to win. I didn't even think I was going to make it that far just because of my injured wrist. And sometimes that mindset of not having any expectation can work in your favor. I'm just trying to clear my mind and just like have fun. If I win, I win. If I don't win, all good.
Good thing your wife told you to battle.
Yeah, she was like, see, I told you. Yeah, I guess you're right. I could see my wrist affecting me a little bit. I could also see me just like dancing to the music. I think in this final versus Gravity, I just wanted to like show more stamina in that moment.
It's interesting that you bring up this idea of no pressure. Really successful people, when they talk about their drive for whatever they're doing, it's just the love of the game. Success is just a symptom.
For like some of my older footage, '07, you know, the B-Boy Olympics, that era for me, the motivation was like just representing like my style, representing my crew and my city. The success after that was just like you said, like kind of like a symptom of just going hard.
So you've battled him really countless times at this point.
Yeah, we've battled in ciphers too. Like he's called me out a couple times in ciphers. Yeah, so I battled him. So he actually beat me. He wrote a Facebook post about this. He's like, he beat me for the first time in like 16 years. I think it was a close battle. I could see why the judges gave it to him. That wasn't like my best performance, but I was going like for a tester. Even though I lost, I was kind of like, all right, so I just need to prep a little bit more, that's all. I want to prep for next year so I can make more of the qualifiers for next year. But this year, I just wanted to test it out.
Jumping ahead a couple more years, we're looking at 2016, 1v1 finals with Fleo, FamFest.
See the inside halo right there? One of the things I like about Fleo is that he understands the art of battle. And what I mean by that is more like cypher style art of battle, even though you bring it to the competition. I like to battle like that. I feel like this battle was an exchange of energy. B-boys like Fleo, I like to battle people like that because he's original. To me, it's almost like a conversation of, here's a move that you actually made up. Okay, check this out. I made this up. Okay, dope. You made that up. All right, now check this out. There's certain B-boys I respect like that, B-boys that really make it a thing to try and create something. Fleo's one of those guys, so this was cool to like be in the finals against him. He's my homie. I respect him, but I was just like, all right, I gotta win though.
We've heard you talk a little bit today about your approach to breaking and having this well-roundedness. You're stronger in power, and then you're adding the refinement, you're adding more of the step flow. Could you maybe talk about this particular detail? If you're well-rounded and you're battling someone, maybe you know they have greater strengths in other aspects. It's like, I know this guy has better blows than me, I know this guy's faster than me, I know this guy has better rhythm than me, or what have you. What goes on in your head as you step up to the floor?
I've battled certain people that it's like they're like wild cards and they have wow factors. So I've battled Pocket, I battled Little G, I battled Kid Columbia. One of the things that helps in that situation, this is just me personally because I have insight from both sides. I have insight from being right there in the arena of battling, but I also know what it's like to be judging and knowing what you're looking for as a judge. If you battle them first round, it's pretty tough. If you're getting them in the later rounds, it's a little bit easier because at this point in time, they're probably repeating certain power move combos or starting to look similar at this point. Pocket and Little G, I think I battled pretty early on at Freestyle Session. I think that was 2016. I got them pretty early on, so there's a little bit of that nervousness, like, damn, are they gonna blow it up? But my approach to that is, even if they blow it up, you gotta kind of block that out. You gotta block the crowd out and stick to your game plan, because that's just one round. If the judges are smart and they know what they're doing, if it's a 3-round battle, you still have time to win the battle. I look at it like an MMA fight or like a boxing fight. Boxing match has 10 to 12 rounds. If you lose a round, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. That's what I liked about like the Kozen system. It's round for round. Right after that round, it'll show you on the screen if you won or lost. Then you know if you lost, you got to turn it up now. Second round, then you can tie it. If your stamina's right, third round, you can take it home. For guys like that who can blow it up, match that blow up, or if it's somebody, you know, like Pocket, my power is not as good as Pocket. My power is not as good as Little G's, but I can at least closely match it. So I can closely match your power so that the judges see like, okay, El Nino gave me a little bit of this, but then I can go also into the other elements of the dance and kind of show whether that's in the top rock, footwork, originality aspect, where you're showing so much more than just blow-ups. And again, that depends on the judges. It depends on where you're at geographically. France loves blow-ups. So my particular style, I don't do that well in France. I've only won like one battle in France. One of the things that is really dope to hear to me, it's like an honor to me when I hear this. A lot of b-boys from the late 70s to early 80s, they come up to me and they say, yo, you're the only guy that's like doing it right. I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, a lot of the original b-boys, they obviously love how breaking is, the evolution of it, but a lot of them say I'm the closest to the real thing, or what they consider is the real thing. It's been my thing to always keep my traditional roots, but still update it with newer generation moves so that I'm representing both. Because I'm like smack dab in the middle of both eras. If you look at old footage of like Rocksteady, New York City Breakers, and then even like a little bit later on into like Skill Methods, or a lot of us on the East Coast just had good style, footwork, regular like ground power. I was inspired a lot by Incredible Josh, because him and like Chino, those were the first guys on the East Coast, like I said, that were like pushing the envelope as far as power. And then I used to watch certain guys out west a little bit, and even in Texas, guys like Mondo, Boy, Ivan, the urban action figure, of course, Vietnam, Cujo. Even though like Vietnam and Cujo, like on the East Coast, we were like, yo, you can't crash, you have to be clean. I was still kind of like studying those guys and watching those guys. They were still pushing the envelope of what's possible to do with your body.
Breaking for gold, we've talked about this a little bit. I will just show your first round here. I love this sequence.
Okay, yeah. And you see there's the left hand pickup again, just using it, you know, as a strength. Boom, you know, keeping it going, not finishing, just giving a little bit more on top, making my rounds a little bit longer.
You are a representative for Breakin on USA Dance. We can see your name, we can see your photo on the website. Could you share, essentially, what do you think that means?
My role, it's not like anything too fancy. So basically, I just have to attend the meetings, and I'm representing the breakers in terms of having to vote for certain things that we might want, or trying to go out and get funds and get funding for massage therapists at jams and stuff like that. Because here in the States, we don't have like a lot of government support like some other countries. So we have to rely on getting some sponsorship from like private companies or public companies, or just people who want to support individuals and put that back into the community. So really, I'm just there as to make sure that the breakers are being treated right. We just want to have USA in the building, and not only in the building, but in the building with some sort of support. Maybe we can help with your flights. Maybe we can help with massages if you need it, or a physical therapist. Maybe we can help with a hotel room. Just trying to support breakers in the US, because we don't really get that love. And it was born here, and it's only right. So literally everybody who's on the panel, who's helping to do this, is like volunteering their time. All of us are like been in the game 15 plus years and have gone through different eras. I think it's a duty for me to leave when I retire from breaking, the breaking community, a better place for the next generation with like better opportunities, better resources for like health-wise, better jams overall, like even a better environment for like B-girls. We're changing to a more professional environment. Hip-hop culture and breaking culture has given me so much. Like I've been around the world at least twice now, over 30 different countries, make a living doing this. And I think I'm lucky, you know, like there's a handful of people who can say that. And it's starting to change now. We're getting more and more opportunities for breakers. Companies are starting to look at breaking with a little bit more seriousness now, as far as like giving us our respect. Hopefully one day we see first of many like B-boy millionaires sponsored by Nike and all that. I mean, we're starting to see that now.
You're seeing yourself going through breaking and competing as a younger person, and now as you're getting older, you're seeing another role that you're taking on in the community, which is just being a leader, really. You're seeing more of the big picture.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I was raised around like strong leaders. Like my uncle Lean Ski he's a leader wherever he goes. So like he was basically like the godfather of hip hop in Boston. And then when he left and moved to Hawaii, he's kind of like the same thing in Hawaii. You know what I mean? He brings hip hop. He is hip hop. He's very selfless. And so I have individuals like that around me. And I'm still young too, so that's why I still want to compete. I still have like years under my belt to compete. I'm still hungry to compete, but also excited about the next generation and like what I can do to help them. A lot of us, our generation, you know, shout out to Taekwon, Omar, Cracker Zacks, Nemesis, Candy, Cujo. These are all people who were involved in USA Dance as well. I'm probably the youngest person, maybe. Morris is as well. We just want things done right.
Last clip we'll show here, just last month, Vans in the Circle prelims.
Prelims is always fun.
Sick.
Thanks, bro. I think for this, I'm literally like just having fun. Like, freestyle, just freestyling. I mean, these are like actual movements, you know, like actual things, but I'm actually freestyling. I just know how to transition very well in between my stuff. I think it just comes with time. I was at All Break Europe a few years back, 2018 or 2019. I still like to ask questions to some of the B-boys I looked up to, so I was talking to Lego. Lego is like the art of storytelling, you know, he's just like so intricate in his footwork, and we were just exchanging what each other needs to work on. I told Lego, I'm like, yo man, you need to throw more power in your stuff. And he's like, oh, you need more intricate footwork. And I'm like, yo, you're totally right. That is something that I was like lacking. I was like, all right, you know what, I'm gonna work on it. Like when I get home, I remember thinking about that. When I get home, I'm gonna work on footwork. I'm gonna try to get like better intricate footwork and more threads. I'm not like a thready guy, but you know, why not? Why not just add more to your arsenal? That could only help. Then I injured myself in Japan in a judge showcase. I pulled my groin, so I couldn't do power for like 6 months straight. That just further made me like train more on like just the footwork and intricacies of it. Not only like footwork patterns and intricate footwork, but also just like different transitions that I normally wouldn't use. It's all a journey. So seeing all these clips, it's like, it's funny. It's less power, more footwork now, but I kind of like it. Now I gotta, because of all that training and the footwork, now I gotta go back to power now.
What you're describing about pulling your groin almost feels like it takes you getting injured for you to actually branch out from what your strengths are.
Right, yeah, it's true. That's so true. Like,
we've heard you speak on generational differences you've observed from when you started breaking versus the present. Different style trends with the access to internet footage, maybe a greater emphasis on competition as opposed to you're saying, you know, I just wanted to get down in the ciphers, represent the name. For someone with such breadth in terms of engagement in the community and recognition for achievement, probably compared to most breakers, Where do you think breaking is going, let's say in 5 years? What you're excited for, things you might be concerned about?
Breakers in general, like professional breakers, are going to have more opportunities now. Big performances, more opportunities to be sponsored. I mean, you kind of already see that with certain b-boys, like in Asia, they get a lot of support in Korea and Japan. It's just going to spread out a little bit more to some of the other continents, some of the European breakers that are really dope, and then obviously America as well. I've seen so many talented breakers just have to like go back and get a job because it's so difficult. Even some of like the famous b-boys, it's like sometimes having trouble like paying their rent or whatever, you know what I mean? I think breaking is like one of the coolest and hardest art forms out there, but it's also the most unappreciated because of like the stigma. So one of the reasons why I supported the Olympics, at least from an optics point of view, to companies, and not only companies but just to the normal spectator, they would look at us more as professionals. When I'm traveling, I just meet like older people, it's like, oh, I used to do that in the 80s. You guys still do that? Hey, when you do it, do you pull out cardboard? And it's like, no, like we're like international now. Like there's huge competitions all around the world, and like when you explain that to people, nobody knows. The platform of the Olympics and like breakers being on that as a whole would make society respect us a bit more for what we do and how hard it is and how much effort and training we put into it. Another thing is like, I would like to see more people be successful at this, not just a handful of people. Some people, they feel like the Olympics is going to water down breaking. The reality of it is that it's just another lane for breakers. We're still going to have Outbreak Europe, Freestyle Session. We're still going to have crew anniversaries, which in my opinion are probably like still the rawest jams that keep those essences alive. So for example, like Massive Monkey's anniversary, if you want culture and you want to go to a jam that's like dope, where there's ciphers, good music, go there. Or go to FamFest, or go to Flow Lord's anniversary. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the crew anniversaries are where that really lives. And then you still got like some of the bigger events like Freestyle Session and like Outbreak Europe, like I mentioned. Even then, you could even go overseas to certain jams. Like it's out there, like a Radical Force anniversary. Shout out to them. My homies in Singapore, they do it right. You know, they got like a really dope high level all styles battle, high level breaking battle, and then a dope beach party on Sunday with dope DJs that play dope music, and you're getting like everything in one. So like the culture is always going to be there. The Olympics is just another platform that is going to benefit everybody. And that goes from like whether you're a competitor that wants to be on stage going for the gold medal, or you're a studio owner, which you're now going to see an influx of students, of kids and parents that are now comfortable with the idea of their child pursuing breaking as a career. You know, because I've gone through that as well as a teacher of breaking, where certain parents, and rightfully so, because I'm a parent myself, asking me like, well, what does the future look like for my child? Yeah, I can't really answer that question. Like, I don't know. If your kid is really, really dope, then he can become a famous b-boy and he can possibly make a decent living, like, you know, like, or your child can try to become a gold medalist and become a Nike athlete. Not even a gold medalist, just like an Olympian. People don't have a big scope of things. Even if you're a low-tier b-boy, nobody knows you, whatever, but you do performances and you do shows. Now, because breaking is a little bit more respected, everyone as a whole can start to charge more for performances, because now we're a little bit more respected. Your whole crew, let's say you got a crew of 10 people, but somebody's offering you $200 for a show. I can go beyond that, even more roles for movies, commercials, things like that. So it gets real deep, and it's also going to also take care of a lot of our OGs. There's certain people like Mr. Wiggles and Storm and Poppin' P, guys like that are extremely successful legends that will be touring and getting gigs until their 60s, until their 70s if they want. I think Poppin' Pete, happy birthday to him. I just seen he just turned 61 years old. And he's still touring, he's still a freaking legend to this day. Guys like Maurizio, Freeze, even my uncle like Lean Ski, like I think of guys like that. You know, I think the Olympics gives them an opportunity to be judging the Olympics and have a steady job of like judging all these different qualifiers. Just more on a lighter side of things. I think the kids are gonna take over, bro. I think it's gonna be like we're already like seeing it, you know, with kids like Suki, France, Japan, Russia, just like going nuts, going crazy. When I took over the crew, Floor Lords, when I became Floor Lords president, now all of a sudden I'm responsible for now like a whole crew, like 15, 20 people, and then like being a father. I think all these things kind of influenced me to start thinking bigger. Even like in teaching, there's certain students that have to be like, oh, well, I can approach this student this way where I can be very tough with them. But this student, if I'm too tough, like he might start crying, go in the corner, so I gotta be pretty chill. Just all those experiences of working with different people, talking to different people, being a mentor, being a leader, like you said, it kind of makes you start to think of things in the grand scheme of things. And then also being a promoter as well. Like I promote events, my crew anniversary is in 2 weeks. So I think of that, like, okay, lighting, DJs, good music, the floor for the B-boys, right? The floor is important. I mean, we've been doing jams for a while now, so I kind of like got it down to a science now. It sucks if you're a local B-boy and you go to a jam, you go to support, you pay your money to get a flight, and then you get to the jam and the floor sucks. Just little things like that. As a culture that's 40 years old now, we should be getting this right. Obviously, the floor should be good.
Right.
Obviously, you should have some good DJs. Obviously, you should have some qualified judges and not just hire your friends. Maybe not everybody knows this, so I want to put this in there. Like, if you're thinking about throwing an event, one, you shouldn't really like have money on your mind because most events, you're probably going to lose money first year, second year. So it should really be more like something that you want to do for the local scene. You should start small and let it organically grow. And if you bring quality, like if you bring quality judges, quality DJs, the way my crew did it was 20, 25 of us, everybody just throw $100 in, now you got 2,500, we do like a small jam. Over time, and little by little, the community respected us and trusted us to like throw a quality jam, so it grew and grew and grew and grew. Now, pretty much every year, we have anywhere from 300 to 500 people that come through. They already know that it's gonna be dope, raw, ciphers, whatever. For any like local people out there that want to throw a jam, and you want it to be successful, those are my tips.
Did you have any parting thoughts for our viewers?
I'll just say this because I get this question asked a lot from a lot of the kids. If you're a kid or like a local breaker in your scene and you're trying to become famous, because that's what most of the kids care about nowadays, trying to get to BC1, right? Kids, or at least local B-boys, are starting in mind with too much expectation in the beginning. And then they get disappointed, they get frustrated, and they want to quit. Give yourself a timeline, make like small goals for yourself. Try to make it past prelims. First, try to have a good prelim, then try to make it to top 16. If you lose, cool. You know, then your goal can be make it past top 16. Just focus on that. Next couple battles or the next 6 months or whatever, try to make it past top 16 to top 8. Then maybe have a goal of like the guy that smoked you last battle, maybe you want to smoke him next battle. So you gotta have small goals like that, whether that's from like just the windmills, that's the main goal, all right? Be happy with just trying to get the windmill, and so on and so forth. Stop trying to go too big too fast. I started in Boston, and then I became the best in my city. And then I branched out to New York and went to Philly and tested my skills against them. And then I went to Cali, to B-Boy Summit. And don't get frustrated. There's gonna be peaks and plateaus. Don't try to rush the journey, because the journey is the best part. The best times in my career was still those times where my crew would pack up in a bus, 12-passenger van, sweaty, barely any money for like pizza, like eating pizza every day because it's cheap, sleeping on the floor in hotel rooms. But even though those are like uncomfortable times financially and stuff, those are like the times you remember is like the struggles. So even if you're a struggling B-boy right now,
just know, like, in hindsight, you're gonna remember those memories. It's gonna be like really fun. So enjoy the journey.
Good luck with
Appreciate that.
everything moving forward, and I guess we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you, Frankie. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Alex. We're out of here. Peace.
Peace, y'all.